Hey there and welcome to Tail Slaters. This is part 2 of the Sidus Link Not Pro with your Bluetooth controlled fixtures, Aputure only obviously. This is the Aputure app Sidus Link. We're using our phone. You can also use an iPad, which is a little easier to see. And we are going to try and screen capture it as usual, and fingers crossed that it does it, successfully, because usually it does not. It's 2024 and screen recording you would think would be a lock, but apparently not. Anyway, enough whining. Last time, part 1, we talked about the Magic Infinity FX. This time we're going to be talking about the Magic Program Pro, which allows you to create a 10-minute timeline with your Bluetooth controllable fixtures. We're going to get into that. We have 4 lights here. These are the original MC puck lights. And we have 1 Infinibar, just to keep things, simple-ish. This is a nice tool to have on your phone, on your iPad, where you don't need to have a lot of gear, invest in a lot of kit. And you can still do some really cool stuff. Now, the one thing about Bluetooth is it's Bluetooth. Anyone who's used Bluetooth before, pairing with things, a speaker, other things, you can have issues where it fails to pair, things like that. With Bluetooth control on these fixtures, there are occasions where you might lose the pairing. If you didn't join us last time and you need to know things like how to pair to your fixtures, I suggest you go check out the episode 1 where we do all that. We're not going to repeat that here. I have already paired the MC puck lights and I've renamed them and I put them in an order, which is something, again, deviating into a mild tangent when you're on set, is naming things something that makes sense, and B, putting them in an order that also makes sense. It's also a great idea to label your fixtures when you're on set. If you're not a one-man band, even if you are a one-man band, it's nice to be able to know which fixture is which. And when you're 6, 8, 10 hours into the day, not having to remember and then calling out to the fixtures with the call out button, like where did I put that? And if you're putting something in the ceiling, if you're putting something in a row, why not name it 1, 2, 3, 4 and not 1, 2, 3, 4? Just things that make sense. Got the world's giantest coffee cup, courtesy of Chris. Thank you very much. So what we're going to do today is go into the Sidus Link Magic Program Pro. It's a little bit of a mouthful, and it's a little confusing with Sidus Link Pro app that is for DMX control with Bluetooth mesh. That's separate. I'm going to check after this episode to make sure that you can't get into the Magic Program in Sidus Link Pro, because then I'd be wrong, and no one likes that. We're going to go into the little sphere circly guy, and you can see at the top it defaults to Go, which is a shape. Let's go to Pro. Now, one thing to note is that there may be limitations with your devices as far as what the Magic Program Pro will accept into the timeline. I remember when I was doing a couple of things and I decided to use this program, there were some fixtures that it had a little line through, or it was dim, and it wouldn't let that fixture be added into the program. There may be firmware updates that have changed that in time, but anyway, something to note if you're planning on using this is to check that whatever fixtures you're planning on using can talk to the program. That means they should pop up down below, as all these are, and there's nothing here indicating that they can't be added. So first thing you're going to do is you see this little circle with kind of like 4 squares. That's the grid structure that you're choosing. Now you have to choose one of these. And it's a little confusing at first because you're thinking, well, maybe I don't have exactly this number of fixtures. It doesn't matter. You're populating different things in this grid. The maximum number of fixtures you can have is the 5x5. 25 is the max that can run through this program. You can't do more. For this purpose, we have 1, we have 2, we have 3, we have 4, we have 5 fixtures. Should I do 4x4? So let's do that. So let's go ahead and put the MC1 here. You do that by clicking on the fixture below. It highlights it, and then you choose where to put it in the grid. And you can see them populating as I'm doing it. Let's do 3. Let's do 4, and this is from my perspective, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Probably, reverse for you. But to keep my head making sense, I put it in the order that made sense to my brain. And then the Infinibar, let's put it in the bottom corner. So we'll put the just down here just to keep it separate. And great, that looks good. As soon as this is set the way you want it, go ahead and hit the check mark. And now you have all the fixtures, and the number is giving this up here is just the number in the grid. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's all that means. One really important tip right off the bat is if you have a look that you're going to do over and over and over again. Let's say you're making some sort of like a flashing effect. Maybe it goes from steady state into like a flashing pop of color. Maybe it's the same color. You have the ability to set a default, and that's important because if you start, for example, all right, so the iPhone completely lost all of this, but it is a very important tip. It actually lost just about everything that I did, so I went back and I recreated the entire video from the start, but I did forget to mention this, and of course this is one of the more important things to know, and that is how to set a default for continue and flash before you plop all of these nodes onto the timeline. And we will get into that, so continue watching the video, because I do come back and I do go through all of this in person. This one tip I just wanted to make sure was in here, and that is flash and continue. The way to get into the set as default parameters is you double click them, and this is different from what the Sidus Link tutorial videos just says to press them, and it's not a press, it's a double press. And that's it. Hope you'll join me back in the timeline where I do more things and get confused a little, and not as much as other videos though. So there's that, and I don't think there's anything else for me to say. I'm probably going to edit most of this out. But if you want to be able to trigger effects routinely without having to go in to each of the nodes and set each of them independently, without having to alter every single thing you drop on the timeline, if you have something you're going to do more than once, more than twice, more than 4 times, might as well set a default. Bye. What do you want the nodes, what do you want these fixtures to be doing at any given time in the timeline? There's flash, which as one expects, is making a flash effect. There's continue, which is continuous, so just basically on. And you can do fade in, fade out, stuff like that. And then off. Off is exactly what you expect. The fixture is off. If it was on, it turns off. If it is off, it stays off. You don't need to have every spot on the timeline populated with an event. The last thing the fixture did, it's just going to keep doing it. The last thing it did was off, it's going to stay off. The last thing it did was some sort of a flash, it's just going to keep doing it. It's going to keep doing it until it sees something new. Another important thing to keep in mind when you're trying to use this is that you cannot put a command at the exact same time for each of these fixtures. So let's say at second, I believe it's like 0.2 seconds between, so it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So 0.2 seconds is the fastest you can make anything happen, if that makes sense. For example, I can't put fixture 1, I couldn't drop at 0 and then take fixture 2 and also drop it at 0. It's going to be 0 and then 0.2. It's always going to be separate. Now you can create an array, and we'll show you that real quick, because some of you are probably like, well, what if I want like all 4 of these to fire at the same time? In theory, you can do that, but you can have them fire doing the same thing. Like if you want them all to turn blue, great. If you want this one to flash and this one to do blue and this one to do pink, you can't do that. You can't do it at exactly the same time. You can do it very close. You can do 0.2 seconds apart, but you can't do it at the same time. Now, the way you do control more than one fixture at a time is you create an array. So let's press this plus sign in the top right with a circle around it. Let's say I want all of the MCs to be able to do something at different times in the timeline. Select at least 2 fixtures to link together, say okay. And it looks the same, it's a little, I don't know if it's confusing. It looks the same, but one thing you'll note is at the top now there is an array A. And you can make more than one array. So this is the first array you're making, it's calling itself array A. So let me select all 4, you can see they're being highlighted. As soon as you link more than 2, there's a link button. I'm gonna click link. That all changed now to ones at the top. I'm gonna hit OK. So this is now array A. Something I didn't mention before is, so you have fixtures, which is the original setup we had. Next to that was already a tab for all. All is exactly what you would expect. It means all of the fixtures. So let's just go ahead and do that just for funsies. Let's click on all, because this is a button. It doesn't look like it, but this is a button. I'm at 0 on the timeline, and we're going to add an effect. Gonna double click on it. Come on, there you go. Where? Oh, I'm not in continuous, so let's delete that. My bad. Let's go into continuous and let's create an all node, which is where you can find effects. Just quick tips, where you can find effects, you have to be in continuous, not in flash. Effects, we're gonna do, cop car, I guess just keep it all the same. In case I decide to edit this out, intensity 100, we'll go red and blue, and we'll do cycle 4, and we'll confirm. Oh, was there a, no, that was it, okay. Confirm, play that, everything's functioning great. If I have it on this, I can pause it, which will make it stop the insanity. All right, so let's go to 1 second in, and let's say this is where something changes. Let's say our array now is going to do something. Let's say it's going to be continuous. Let's set our default first. Let's set our default is, let's choose the swatch. Actually, it kept the swatch from last time, so at least that didn't get blown away. Set as default. So let's do continuous, and let's add the array at 1 second in. I don't know why it's not working. It should be working. You know, every time you go to show something, it's like things just decide not to work. It's crazy. It really is. All right, come back to all. Come back to array. Shouldn't have to do anything special. Just click on any of them. It's supposed to be the way it works. Don't know why it's not working. I don't have an answer. Flash, can we do a flash continuous? No. Off, can we add an off array? All right, fine. All, let's just add for funsies, let's just add all at blue. So all become blue. Or did it? No, I might off, my bad. Again, I'm getting flustered and I'm not paying attention. So let's delete what we just did. Let's change from off to continuous. We should want our default blue, so hit all. If you double click on it just to look in it, let's call it 100%. Let's do nothing else crazy with it. Say all. So let's go ahead and play from the beginning. It does cop car, then everything sets to blue. It is in loop right now. So it's doing it for a default amount of time, I guess. Let's pause that for a sec. Okay, let's go back into all. Continue time always. Fade out time 0. I don't quite understand that because continue time is set to always. So why it's looping at all, I don't really get. I'm not telling it to stop. Again, I love when I introduce questions. Fade out time. We could do a fade out time just to see more of it. Not that we should need to. I would think in this sort of if I because you can change the continue time to a certain amount of time. So if let's say I said it, and it's set to always. So the fact that it's looping back to cop car doesn't make any sense. Let's say continue time is 2 seconds, and you can double click on it and enter a value versus having to use sometimes using the slider to get exactly to that 1.2 or 2.7 or whatever. So let's just say 2 seconds, okay. And we said fade out time. Let's change that to like 3, Say okay. Fade out curves again. I can't change the fade out curve for some reason. I tried that last time. The fade in curve I can. Let's just do an S curve. Let's confirm it. There's no fade in time, so it should go cop car. As soon as it gets to 1 second in, it should snap to blue. Stay there for 2 seconds, and should fade out for 3 seconds, and should go back to cop car, I guess. I don't really understand it. All right. It's not really doing that, is it? It's always possible that I'm doing something stupid. It's always possible. See if we just change it to 1, what happens? See, now it is doing that fade out. That's interesting. Oh, yeah, that is why. Okay, I understand that. I understand now. It makes sense to me. It is, it's a little bit, you have to kind of wrap your noggin around it, and maybe it's just because I'm not that smart. But what it's doing is, so at 0 seconds, it's doing cop car. At 1 second, it's triggering the node. But the timeline is still intact. In other words, it's doing all at blue, and it's 0.2 seconds, it's already on to whatever the next thing. And if that next thing is using the same fixtures, it's just going to fire it off, if that makes sense. So at 1 second it's saying all blue, and it's probably trying to do, it's starting to do whatever it said, which is to hold for 2 seconds. But 0.2 seconds later, it's giving it a new command that blows away whatever the old command was. I will bet you, if you put empty nodes in, blank nodes. So let's say let's go to like 4 seconds, and let's add blanks. Now, if you, I don't think I mentioned this yet. If you go to a point in the timeline, let's say I go to 5 seconds, and if I just add like an off node, it will put blank nodes between wherever you were and wherever you go. In other words, it's populating the timeline with nothing, but it's populating with something. So anyway, now that this timeline is longer and it's giving it time to do these actions. So let's go ahead and delete the second ender that we added. So now I'm giving it time. You can also, this is also another important note. When you delete things on the timeline, it pulls everything forward. So let's say you want something to happen exactly at 5 seconds and you put it at 5 seconds. If you delete things before it, it's going to start pulling it forward and forward and forward. That's something really important to note. I wish there was a way around that because, you know, let's say you make decisions where you change something. If you delete it, you could change it and it'll stay the same, but anything you delete, it's just gonna suck everything in by however many you go and delete. All right, so let's just try and play this again. Now, in theory, if it's a one-off, it should do exactly what it did before, which is cop car. Oh, you know what? I have to go back to the beginning because I made this longer. Now I have to tell it to be at the beginning, hit play. It's gonna do cop car. It's gonna do 2-second hold, 3-second fade out. Now, that's exactly what happened before, even when it was the last node. So let's go ahead now and try a loop. Now in theory, because I made the timeline long enough to accomplish whatever was in that final node, now this should work. Should. But now it's doing what I want it to do. So, okay, we just solved our own little silly issue. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's the fact that a new command in the timeline is telling each of these fixtures to do something, and they're obeying it, as one would expect. So this is not a glitch. This is me being dumb. But figuring it out, luckily, during the episode, so I don't have to put a bunch of bullshit like text or like, you know, voiceover how it should have worked. All right, so if you want something to loop, but you want the program to honor like a fade out or a hold time, you need to give it enough time at the end to finish those, just by putting empty nodes. You can put empty nodes. Let's say you need a 5-second fade out. You got to get out 5 seconds from whatever the last thing the thing is doing. Let's say it's a 2-second hold, 5-second fade out. You got to give it 7 seconds to do it, so the timeline can continue running before it jumps back to the beginning and starts to loop again. Now, like I said, if it's the final node in the timeline and it's a one-off, not a loop, then it fires off that node. It has nothing else to do, and so it continues following the last command it was given, which was to hold and then fade out. All right, so we figured something out. That's nice. Anyway, so let's add an array. So we did blue here. So let's say after the all, let's do it like at between 2 and 3 seconds. Let's choose here. Let's go to array. Now I was having trouble adding an array. I don't know why. Let's go to continuous, or maybe let's go to flash. Let's try a flash. We haven't done a flash yet. All right, so I'm on the wrong thing. I don't know how I did that. Oh, you can also see as I'm adding, it is pushing. If I add something into the middle here, it is pushing the timeline out. So again, these are all things to be aware of as you're building your timeline. Is because I added all these empty nodes. Now if I add another one, it is pushing stuff out. So let's say you can see it's 2 spots past 2 seconds. Let's say if I add fixture 1 again, see it pushed it out. So it pushed that command for fixture 1, it pushed it out another 2.2 seconds. Now I can go here and delete this, and it will suck it back in. But if you're trying to be very precise at 2 seconds this happens, 10 seconds this happens, you got to be aware of adding fixtures and subtracting them. It's going to keep the timeline intact, if that makes sense. Let's delete this because I was trying to do an array. So at like 2.5 seconds-ish, go to array, and let's see if we can do it. Let's do flash. Our default is still set to blue. All right, it did add it. Before it wouldn't, I don't know why. Before I tried adding an array, it just stared at me. Anyway, so the array, if you remember, all 4 of these together. So let's double click on this. Let's say we don't really want blue. Let's say we want red. And it is a flash. So at the bottom here, you have, I said red. It's hard sometimes to make this thing scroll because you can interact with things by accident. Okay, Nathan would tell me that's not really red. It's more like that. Okay. Frequency, let's say, 5 Hertz, fine. Times, this is how many times, I believe. Let's say 25 times. So 5. So 25 times 5 seconds. Now, if you change the Hertz, that will also change how long this will last. So as I'm making the Hertz smaller, you can see 25 times would take 250 seconds. I don't really want something to last 250 seconds. Let's make 10 Hertz, just 2.5 seconds. So these are gonna fire really fast. Confirm that. And let's say we want the infinibar to do something else. So let's go before it. Again, you can't do these at the same time. Now I could make, actually no, I can't. If I want them to do different things, I can't use the array. I was about to say I could make an array with like 2 of these plus an infinibar, but that would only be if I want them to do something different. Anyway, so let's say the infinibar, let's go to continuous, let's go to fixtures, let's add the infinibar, which is number 13. It's going to default to our blue. Again, you can change that at any time. Let's double click on it. Let's do something different that's not, let's do like a chase. Let's just take all the defaults. Time, 20 seconds, loop mode, always, sure. Confirm. And let's go back to the beginning. Double, or click on our first node since there is one there. Let's hit play and let's see what happens. Cop car, all they're gonna do that blue. That turns to red. This starts a flash, and then it loops. Yep, so again, flash is all about the hertz, about the frequency, and about how many times. And you can make it last as long or short as you want. Now again, if any of these fixtures get another command during that time, during that 2.5 seconds, if I tell one of these to turn green, let's try that. Let's pause it. So here, this is where we're telling the flash to go off. So let's say there's a 2.5 second flash. So let's say at 4 seconds, let's say puck number 3, which is this guy, and let's double click it and let's change it to like a green or something at 100%. And that's it. It just turns green. It turns green, stays green. Always confirm. Go back to the beginning of our timeline. Hit play. All right, go to blue, red for the flashing. This turns to green. I'm more of a yellow green, but whatever. And then it loops again, back to the beginning. That's my alarm telling me the plumber might be here soon. Wonderful timing. And again, you can see the visual representation of what's happening, which is helpful, I think. The other thing I can do, which we haven't talked about yet, is there's a store button here. So let's say I want to save this and not lose it, like I did accidentally somehow when I paused. Anyway, when I came out of the program, came back in, and it was gone. But I didn't shut the program off, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean. One thing we didn't look at A, B. So setting, let's say we set A to here. So you press it again. So you click, basically you click it to activate it. You press it once while it's flashing, A, to set the A point, and then you jump to the B point, set the B point. Now you have an in point and an out point. And if you press play, it's going to start at A and go to B. And yeah. There you go. All right, so if I click it again, it takes the in out point away. Now this button here, which looks like undo, I don't know that is undo. I think that's reset. So I think that resets everything to nothing. Let's just try it because we do have it saved, so we should be able to pull it back up. Reset, yeah, it just starts over. So the timeline is now empty. So just be aware, if you click on that, if you haven't saved it yet and you hit that, that's not undo, that is reset to the beginning. So let's pull this back up. Now we're back where we were. I want to see if you press the rightmost circle, which has the 4 squares in it, that's our grid setup. What happens? Does that give me the option to change? Would it start a new one? I think it would start a new one. Let's do it. If I do 3 by 3, the current sequence has not been saved to the store. Are you sure you want to create a new matrix? It's if you want to start over. So make sure you've saved if you want to start a new matrix, new grid, whatever you want to call it, because it's going to blow it away. Thanks so much for joining Tailslaters. This was the magic program in Sidus Link, not Pro, on my phone. Can do it on an iPad. And it's Bluetooth control only. Don't need DMX, don't need any other pieces, just your phone and Bluetooth or an iPad and your Aputure fixtures. That's pretty neat. It's pretty powerful for what it can do. And yeah, that does need a bunch of other gear with it. Again, I'm Darren Murphy, and here we are with our middle finger swag, which is always a hoot. Won't you join us next time for more fabulous tips about film production?